What's going on, family? Chef Kevin here, and I want to welcome you to an episode that we like to call Freshly Made. In this episode, we'll be making our Pear Glazed beef yakisoba. Here's a list of ingredients, and the recipe will be in the link down below. Now first, I like to get my heat to like medium high, and we're going to start off with our caramelized pears. So I like to add my pears to my pan. So right now we have our pears slightly cooking in our pan. The next thing we want to do is add our brown sugar just for a small caramelization. Now, you don't have to use brown sugar. You can also use Splenda. Splenda has a great brown sugar as well. And you'll barely be able to tell the difference. And so we're just going to let that caramelize a little bit. And you're just looking for a slightly dark tint. I'm also going to add my low sodium soy sauce. So in the school district, we utilize low sodium soy sauce because of the sodium restrictions that we have with our students. But you can use regular soy sauce if you would like. I'm just using low sodium. And we're just going to let that caramelize. And what you're looking for is on the edges of your pears to become slightly browned. A lot of that soy sauce will start to evaporate. And once your edges get slightly brown, you'll know you're done. Now lastly, our pears are almost finished cooking. This is where we want to add our garlic powder to our pears. And just allow that to season up your pears a little bit, so you'll have your soy caramelized garlic pears. And now look at that. You see all your soy sauce and all your brown sugar has evaporated into those pears. They become slightly a little bit dry, but you see that caramelization. And now we just remove this from the heat. All right, great. Now that we got our pears nicely caramelized, the next thing we want to do is start to make our pear glaze. Now, all I did was drain my canned pears, and I took all my juice, and all I'm going to do is just add that to my pan. Now, with this recipe, the reason why I like this canned pear juice is because it's already naturally sweet. So all we have to do is just spice it up a little bit and thicken it up for our beef yakisoba. So right now we're just waiting for our pear juice to just come to a slight boil. Before it gets to a boil, I'm going to add my ½ cup of soy sauce, low sodium soy sauce, and I'm just going to allow that to mix. And now while it's still slightly coming to a boil, we're going to add our seasonings to it. So I have my garlic powder. I have my black pepper. I have my onion powder. And I have some crushed red pepper for a little bit of spice. Now if you don't like a little bit of spice, you don't have to add the crushed red pepper. That's just me. And I'll just allow all those ingredients to incorporate and let that come to a boil. The last thing I want to add is my brown sugar. Just a little bit for a little bit of the sweetness. And I'm just going to allow that to come to a simmer. And now meanwhile, while that's coming to a simmer, I got my cup of water. I'm gonna make me a nice cornstarch slurry. So you just wanna add your cornstarch to your water. Take a spoon and let's just mix that up. Now that I got my cornstarch slurry all mixed up and my glaze is coming to a nice simmer, the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you taste your sauce. That's perfect. So next I want to do is add my cornstarch slurry to my sauce and allow that to continue to simmer. And I'm just going to mix that up. Now that our sauce has finished simmering up, it has a nice glazed consistency. And how do you know it has a nice glazed consistency? Is when you take your spoon, it coats the back of your spoon just like that. That's the way you want it to coat your noodles, right? And we're gonna take it off the heat so we can start making our yakisoba. Now that we are 2/3 of the way through, I have my pear glaze and I also have my soy garlic caramelized pears. These actually look really good. Lastly, we're gonna use some thinly sliced flank steak, or you could use skirt steak. I have some thinly sliced onion, red and green pepper, and I also have some spaghetti noodles. Now in the schools we use whole grain noodles because part of our requirements is to use 80% of whole grain. In this recipe we chose enriched noodles, and which you can use in enriched just regular old spaghetti noodles, or you could use soba noodles as well. So let's get started making this yakisoba. So what I like to do is take a little bit of my oil, just a neutral oil. It can be canola, grapeseed, it could be olive oil. I just like to coat my pan just a little bit. Have my heat medium high, and I'll slowly just start to add my beef. You hear that sizzle? That's what you want to hear. Now, yakisoba is a traditional Japanese noodle dish, and I love Japanese food. So that's where the inspiration for this recipe comes from, just in general. So as I start to cook my beef, I want to make sure there's enough room in the pan so I can get a nice browning on my meat before I do anything to it. I'm just going to allow that to cook. Now during this time you can season your beef, and so what I like to season it with is garlic powder again, fresh cracked black pepper, and onion powder. The same seasonings minus the crushed red pepper that we put in our yakisoba glaze. And we're just going to allow that to coat our meat and season it up. Now that we're halfway through our cooking process with our meat, we're going to go in with some rough chopped, long ways green onion. And we're just going to allow that to mix up a little bit before we add our other vegetables. And now that my meat is almost all the way cooked through, I'm going to add my vegetables. And we're just going to allow this to stir fry our vegetables. Now you can continue to use a spatula to mix this up, but I like to be a little fancy. Now that we have our meat nicely browned, and this is the caramelization that we're looking for, and we have our vegetables nicely stir-fried. Yeah, that looks great. Now we just want to add some thinly sliced cabbage and carrots, but you can just get coleslaw mix. It makes it a lot faster and quicker. You just want to add that to your vegetables and just allow that to mix. And you can smell it as you're cooking, and you start to see the rest of your meat brown like that. Oh, this is going to be so good. And you just want your cabbage to wilt just a little bit. Yeah, that's perfect. Now we're going to turn the heat down just a little bit, and we're going to slowly add our noodles to our meat. Now we got our meat added, our noodles added, and you just want to mix this all up to get it nice and mixed in. Now it's nicely fully incorporated. Yeah, that's perfect. So lastly, now that we have all our ingredients in, you want to slowly add your caramelized pears in. Back to your dish and give that a nice mix as well. And we're going to save a little bit of those pears to garnish the top. Now we have our pear glaze, and we're just going to add our glaze to our noodles. Now, one of the final ingredients that I want you to add to your pear glazed beef yakisoba, and trust me, it's a little weird, but just go with it. It's ketchup. Now, the ketchup adds a little bit of that color and that tint to your noodles. And we're just going to add just a little bit, and we're going to allow that to mix. Now, that ketchup adds a little bit of acidity, but it also glazes your noodles with a nice red orangish tint. And adds just a little bit extra depth of flavor. I'm gonna make sure all of that's nice and incorporated. And then we're just going to finish this off with some nice fresh green onions. And there you have it, pear glazed beef yakisoba. Now that our pear glazed beef yakisoba is finished, we just want to plate, right? So we're just gonna get a nice helping of our beef yakisoba. Should we got some noodles in there. And we want to finish it off with some green onion on top. And let's not forget some of our caramelized pears. And there you have it, pear glazed beef yakisoba. Thank you for joining me on this special episode of Freshly Made, featuring our pear glazed beef yakisoba. It's time to eat.